loud. Okay, just so everybody knows, I am recording this meeting.
And I'd like to welcome everybody to the April 8th Project Review Subcommittee meeting for the Peninsula Community Planning Board. I'm Mark Krensig. We have board members Corla, Brad, Robert, and community member Joe on with myself. So we have a quorum. The first item on our agenda. Oh, first of all, I'd like to say this is my last project review meeting, and I'd like to thank everybody for the insightful conversations we've had over the last several years. And I look forward to serving on the subcommittee as a community member for the next year, and to continuing on with the good work that we do in our subcommittee here. So I appreciate everybody, and I guess if I say anything wrong or do anything wrong, there's nothing you can do to me now.
Well, we'd like to thank you for all you've done for this committee and how great it's been working with you, Mark. It's just been a wonderful experience, and I personally have learned a lot and truly appreciate all you have done.
Well, thank you very much. I know, you guys have said that to me a lot now over the last couple months. So it's, I really appreciate it, and it's nice to get those accolades at some point in your life. So I've done good. That's good.
Right. How many years, Mark?
No, that's what I was going to tell you. I've got a story. I read an email. I sent it over to Joe, and it was the day that Jay Shoemaker asked me to sit in as chair for the July 2013 subcommittee project review, right? He asked me, hey, I'm going to be gone on vacation for 2 months. He never came back.
And stuck for the next 8 years.
Here I am coming up on 8 years, right? And he never came back.
Right.
Ride his bike around, but I haven't seen him for a long time. That's funny.
He's skiing
It's
right
going to
now.
be big shoes to fill, Mark. Big shoes to fill.
Well, Joe, good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get going then. So we have approval of the previous meeting, which was the February of 21 meeting. I put those out and asked everybody to take a look. I didn't receive any comments back. Is there any other comments, or do we hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor, or anybody objecting? There we go. Okay. Yeah. All right, so let's go on to a non-agenda public comment period. Anybody have anything to say about what's going on in our community? Corla.
Always.
That's a surprise.
Sorry, guys. So I missed last week's because I didn't read it until it was too late, but there's a food distribution event from Feeding San Diego. And okay, I thought somebody was trying to get in. Sorry. Feeding San Diego on May 1st from 10 to noon at the Pechanga Sports Arena there. And they'll be distributing food to those in need. And I'd like to remind everybody the library survey is due on April 17th. So if you have a chance, go online and do the library survey. Yesterday was Library Giving Day, and they're asking for donations and everything. Things that are coming up is the SDG&E franchise agreement. That's been being discussed in CPC. And the DSD is all electronic now, so they recommend, and I'll be announcing all this stuff at the board meeting as well, but they recommend going online and choosing what notices you'd like to get electronically and how you can file and all that. I have more information if anybody's interested. Joe LaCava is talking about 600-24. That's going to be a big discussion for CPC. And then an interesting thing, I attend my where I have my cabin in Boulder, Utah, and I've been going because everything's on Zoom. I can attend their town council and their planning commission meetings, and so it's been very interesting. And they have just gone to a hybrid method, and they have something called an owl, and it's some kind of little thing I think that takes a picture of the room. And there weren't any participants per se in the meeting room. Everybody, so they were Zoom and in person, so they're doing this hybrid kind of thing. So the mayor was running the meeting, and then the tech person was in another room, but you could see all of them, and then you could see all the Zoom people. And I have a screenshot of that. It was an interesting meeting, interesting concept, because Tony Kempton was asking us last month how we thought we'd want to continue with CPC and with our board meetings. Do we want to have in person, continue Zoom? So there's going to be discussion, I think, over this next months or year or whatever about how we're going to proceed with those things. So it was an interesting meeting. And then the Montserrat Hotel restaurant, I got some pushback on that, but do we have any recourse or anything to do, or we just be quiet when they promise one thing and do another?
Well, go ahead, Mark.
Well, Corla, that's quite an assumption that they did something wrong, first of all. So, I would say let's give them the benefit of the doubt until we find that they did something wrong. I did get that email, and I did do a little research on it so far, and we can briefly talk about it. But Corla, I would say keep pursuing it, and we'll get to the bottom of this, shortly. Anyway, what I did was after I received your email this Tuesday, I called Byron up. Byron gave me the name of the developer, Greg Lamarca. And I had a little time and spoke with Greg, and he's all excited because the hotel is opening up here in the next month, 7 months behind schedule. But, we all know it was a challenging last, year. So I was really delighted. We all think the hotel looks nice. We think it meets all the standards that we strive for in our community. And I think the ground floor is something that is dynamic and open to the street like what we want it to be. As to the restaurant and the article that was in the paper and how it's been portrayed is, it's interesting because I think we are interchanging, and again, this is my point of view after talking to Greg, and I guess we'll all get the opportunity to challenge him on it, is that when we talk about a restaurant, what they're talking about is food and beverage service, and food and beverage service for a hotel. And the hotel has a lobby, and it has outdoor patio area that has that 2,800 square feet that was kind of listed as the area that's available to do that in. It's not an independently run restaurant like a Brigantine or like a Fish House or any of the other ones that you see. It's more in tune to provide the food and beverage for the guests, and then also for the community, because when they did their outreach and they came to us and they went to the Point Loma Association, they got the feedback that the community really wanted a place that they could go dash into, perhaps get a little bite to eat, perhaps have a cocktail, perhaps have a little meeting there. So it kind of is what it's close to, I think it is still what they projected it to us to be during their meetings. They did talk about cafe. They did talk about indoor, dining area. They didn't use the word restaurant. And I think maybe the word restaurant's being interplayed a little too much with this conversation. But here's the big point, Corla. What Greg said, and he was planning on doing this anyway, the hotel is planned to open up here in a month, so the 1st of May, and he is going to invite the planning board down there, right, to visit, to see what it is, see what's available. I'm sure he's using it as a marketing tool anyway, which is good. But at the same time, then we'll be able to go down there. We'll be able to see ourselves what they've actually built, see how it works, and call it out if we think it is something that is, quote, a restaurant that we wouldn't have, visualized when they came and presented it to us. So it was a good conversation. He's aware of it now, right? He's aware there's some, talking about it. So that's good. And we'll just follow through with it based on what I found.
Well, I got this information. I mean, I pulled the article. I saw the article myself, but I got the objection from a community member who was actually from Marion, who was at that meeting, and she really brought it to my attention. So that's why I said, if it's coming from the community, I want to address it. And
you can do it tomorrow.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't need it now.
Made sure that it's what everybody wanted. So I like the idea. They promised us meeting space and different things. I like the idea of having that. The community member that that I was speaking with was worried about parking and said they don't have enough parking if they're going to have a big restaurant. And so that was where all of that came from. So
Well, let's make sure we invite Miriam to the party when they open up, and we'll go down and have a cocktail with her.
let's hope so. She's moving to Oregon. I don't know exactly when.
If there's nothing else to do.
Robert, you need to mute, hon.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, what, Corla, was there anything else on your
Well,
list?
thank you. That's enough. That's enough.
Yep, it was good. I would just want to add to my non-agenda public comment is congratulations to the new board members that were elected. Robert Jackson, congratulations, good job. Look forward to continued efforts from you.
And Joe as well.
Joe as well, and Brad. Oh, Brad and Corey, you guys won. So congratulations. Okay, anybody else? We'll move on then if that's the case. All right. Our first action item is an action item that was brought to us by one of our community, or one of our board members that sits on our subcommittee here, Brad. This is an opportunity for the community to look at 952 Rosecrans. It's a potential historic resource for our community. I did a little research beforehand and dove into our community plan to see if it was identified as a resource, and it wasn't, but our community plan is only 3 pages long when it comes to historical resources. So I thought it was
joking.
a little short on that one. And then I looked through
Join the meeting.
the city's website and I didn't see it on there. However, our community plan does encourage us to look at historic preservation and take opportunities where they may exist and reach out and see if we can, create that resource in our community. So having said that, Brad, and we have Kyle, who is the homeowner. Brad, do you want to say anything, or should we just turn it over to Kyle? Why don't you guys take over and
I think that it's Kyle's home, and he can describe. I mean, after Kyle's done, maybe I can weigh in on any perspective I may have after our conversations. But I think Kyle should give an overview of what he's trying to do and his experience with the city and anything that's standing in his way. He'll be able to flesh everything out much better than I would be. So feel free, Kyle. Thank you very much for attending, and go ahead, sir. Mute. There you go.
Are you able to hear now? Okay. I was just saying, first, I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time to hear what I have to present. And especially Brad, thank you for working with me. I've talked to Brad several times, and it's been very accommodating with his time to understand kind of the scenario that I'm in, and the what I'm going to present to you today. So along the lines of what Mark was talking about is just mentioned with the historic preservation of, I have a really special and unique circumstance that I wanted to present to you in researching how to kind of combat some of the challenges that I'm facing with respect to a historic designation for my home, turning to the local community members and the organizations with a voice who would be able to speak to the city to voice their opinion about what they think about my home. It seemed is a important component of what I'm looking and seeking to do. So a year ago, can you guys hear okay? I'm just having trouble hearing because of the site I'm at right now. It's fine, okay. So a year ago about, I purchased a home on, it's 952 Rosecrans Street. You probably know it if you're familiar with the area as the Shell House. It has the giant seashell in front of it. And as I purchased it, kind of the layers of the onion started to unfold as to the really the intricate and interwoven historical significance that this home has with relationship to our city and especially the local community of Point Loma, La Playa area. So what I first knew and heard of right off the bat was that my home was owned by Ingrid Croce. So I think most people are probably pretty familiar with Ingrid, but to do a very high level overview of her significance on the community, the biggest accomplishment, the most impressive thing that I know of her, that sums everything she's done up, is that she was inducted into the San Diego County Women's Hall of Fame in 2012, mostly in recognition and celebration of her significant impact on the revitalization of the downtown gas lamp area. And I'm sure that everyone tuned in right now is familiar with Croce's, which we've all probably been to at one point or the other, and if not, I'm sure you must have driven past. Croce's was opened while she owned and lived in this home. And really the Ingrid is known for her, as I mentioned, her revitalizing downtown. She's a musician, she's an artist, she's a businesswoman, and just as significantly to all this is she's been involved in a lot of philanthropic endeavors over the course of as far back as I've researched, I guess. And the time that she owned the home, is my research has uncovered, is this has been the pivotal point from when she metamorphosized from Jim Croce's widow to Ingrid Croce, the woman who ended up being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So that's the overview that I'll talk about Ingrid. I could go on probably forever about all the things she's done. And the key points is that she is an extremely significant person. She's a pioneer, female, influential person, leader, and very, very involved in our community and significant. Her impact on the San Diego community can't be overstated. So this was from, let's say, like 1979 for about a decade after that, almost to the 90s. Now, that was the first thing I heard. I got a lot of information on that, and so I started going, oh, this home could be historic. And actually, when you first look at it, you probably think this home is historic because it just has like the look and feel about it. And what I just want to try to do for a second is I'm going to try to flip my camera so I can show you a picture of it. So this is on my computer, so forgive the.
I did send out the PDF, Kyle, both the SOA letter and the PDF that you're showing on the screen. I don't know that certainly might help in terms of sharing your screen and going through it. So sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Thank you, Brad. I'll put the camera back on me, but as you can see, just what I'd like to point out for a second is you can see that from a general glance, this home looks pretty darn identical from a picture that was taken recently on the front left to the picture on the front right. It stands basically how it stood 108 years ago. And then before I put the camera back on me, I'd like you to key into one thing, which is kind of the whole reason I'm here instead of having a slam dunk case with the city with my historic presentation is if you look at the roof line on the right of the house, if you look at the old picture, the roof goes all the way down to that balcony. If you look at the new picture, there's a French door right above that balcony line. So there was an alteration that was made. Interesting enough, as I come to find out, by Ingrid Croce. Her name is like written all over the permit, and she's like the designer and the owner and all that kind of stuff, which was really an interesting twist to the thing that was causing a major hiccup in this historic designation process. So I'll put this back on me now. You get the general idea of what the house looks like, and you can see the main issue that stands in the way of the historic designation. So if I may talk for one more minute about Ingrid, is not only did Ingrid Croce own this house, but she also owned it with a lady named Gabriela Myers. Gabriela Myers was the Consulate General of Costa Rica, and she was also a banker. And Gabriela Myers was responsible for opening the first women's bank in San Diego. And so that was another little wrinkle with another significant female figure that kind of had unfolded unexpected to me. And then another thing I learned, which actually Kitty McDaniel, who's on the board and the president for the San Diego Trails, Point Loma Trails Association, pointed out to me that one of the people that I had seen and I didn't know, the first person on the chain of ownership and the chain of residency in the home was a lady named Eliza J. Smith. Eliza J. Smith was actually a Jennings. So the J is Jennings. So this was Eliza Jennings Smith's home. Eliza Jennings Smith was one of the charter members of the Point Loma Assembly. Eliza Jennings Smith and her husband were the first people that owned this home. Her husband passed away maybe 7 years until owning it, and Eliza owned it for 36 years until she passed away 36 years after, or 35 years after they purchased it. So Eliza, and not to get too much off on a tangent, but Eliza, as I mentioned, was a charter member of the Point Loma Assembly. She was the only person at the Point Loma Assembly who was there at the 25-year reunion for it. Her brother Frank, I imagine you guys are all familiar with him, with the Jennings house and the whole history of Point Loma and area. Her brother Frank owned like all the real estate in the area, and he actually sold the assembly land and property to them for $5, basically giving it away to them even at the time, so that they might foster this, what was a women's organization. Women's organization whose mission is to promote the advancement of women and the incorporation of women into mainstream society, like things that we take for granted today, that we're still really fighting for equity. But things like politics, things like just reading, voting. It was used as a voting polling place, used for arts, crafts, and making women, bringing women into the main part of mainstream society and operating, which in 1910 to 1915 was unheard of still. So she had a significant role in that, was a charter member, and I'm like, oh my God, this house is tied to the Jennings family, and and it actually, one of the Jennings siblings lived here as well for so long. Not only that, but she follows this trend. Actually, she started setting the trend of this pioneer, trailblazing woman who's taking a lead in her community, starting an assembly and promoting the advancement of women back in the early 1910s. To be followed up by Gabriela Myers and especially Ingrid Croce, who were owners and had this same tradition in their legacy in the home as well. And then one more little thing that to me was pretty like substantial, pretty neat, but it doesn't technically play into the historic technical component, but it's worth talking about, is the first landowner, or not the first, but the landowner at the time, right in the transition from when it became land to property, was Frank Jennings. One thing you may or may not know is Frank Jennings was a senator in Kansas prior to the family moving out to San Diego in 1887. In 1878, Frank Jennings made a motion as a senator to establish a committee and a commission that would empower women within the political community. You see also the action, and there's a little more detail that I kind of have made brief for the sake of not drawing this out forever, but a little more significant contributions that he's made with the Point Loma Assembly and fostering that and making sure that it was successful from a financial standpoint. So this man has been an advocate for this cause is back in the 1870s, which is quite remarkable, which is really tied to the original legacy of this property and the home, and literally built into the foundation, into the dirt that this home sits on, which is pretty special, I think. Okay, so thank you for listening to that. That's the history of the home. You saw the picture, and you understand what I think pretty much the idea of why I think this home is pretty special, and why I think it really should be designated historic and is deserving as any other home or property that there is. So what's the problem? Why am I talking to you guys right now? And why am I appealing to you for support? And what am I asking for support from? So the balcony issue is pretty much the main thing that's standing in the way of a slam dunk historic designation. So many of the things that I've talked about have been more like cultural feel, historic based. A historic designation has a very technical component to it. So if you alter the face of a historic or an old, let's just say old building that's 100 years old, it could just be 50 years old. You alter the face of it from the historic review technical perspective, that's an issue, and that's a significant issue. So I've discussed this this home and the history of it at some length with the city staff that recommends to the historic review board, and the indication was that they're not making any commitment to it, as they would want to see the final product, I guess, first before they made a official judgment. But they indicated that they would not be likely to recommend it for approval, and they would recommend that it would be denied simply for the balcony addition. So, which I understand the technical component on the real historical side, and I think the intent of what we would preserve a property for. To me, this is a no-brainer. I mean, it's really like it's hard for me to imagine that there's even a discussion to be had beyond what I've talked about, beyond looking at that picture to be quite, or the side-to-side picture. But I do acknowledge and understand that there is a technical component. Now, further, to take that one step further, is that on the technical side, there are several homes that I've had one of the board members from Soho. I've talked to several of them, but one of them actually provided me with a PowerPoint, and only one slide in that has 6 different examples in the city of San Diego of homes that have been designated historic that have similar or even less significant modifications made of balconies along this line of thinking. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh man, yeah, of course there should be exceptions made, right? My home is a particular easy, makes a lot of sense that it would be an exception, especially if they've done this in the past, which makes it even more of a slam dunk case to me, although I'm not getting that indication from the city staff. So in light of all this, in light of the history that I've talked about, and in light of the obstacles that are facing me, I sought you guys out because I looked up the influential community members. I know that I read through what the purpose of your organization is, the mission, and that you actually do advise the city of San Diego on development proposals, land-based community goals. And I think that it would be well within your purview, and it makes sense to me that your committee and this board would, if you agree with what I'm saying, would be able to support me in form of a letter of support, just saying we've reviewed reviewed the details of the historic situation, the facts behind what's going on with this home. the issues that it faces, and we are in full support of a historic designation for X, Y, and Z reasons. And that's what my appeal to you is for. And what I have talked to Brad in the past, he was curious about what other community members have been involved and what roles they have played so far. So currently, and I've provided to Brad, I have a letter from Soho expressing all that. And they've gone into a lot of detail as far as all these details that I've talked about, why they are in support of this. I have also worked with the San Diego County Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, and they have agreed to provide a letter of support. I've been in touch with the Women's Hall of Fame, who I'm working on that with right now. And then the Point Loma Trails Association and Point Loma Assembly and the Ocean Beach Women's Club have all provided already. So my tactic is essentially to enlist the support of the pertinent community members, which in this case would be like Soho is huge, obviously. I think you guys are a very critical component too, because you actually are represent like a planning side of things, which is Mark mentioned at the beginning, would include the historic preservation component. Plus you understand the history of this area. When I talk to you guys, I could see by your head nods, you all know the name Jennings and you all know the name Ingrid Croce. And so not everyone necessarily is in tune with that. So your specific location of your board can represent and is the really ideal entity to represent the community on something like this. So, and then additionally, there's the whole women's advancement, pioneering, influential women leaders theme that this house has, which is why I've reached out to like the Women's Club, the Women's Hall of Fame, and the Committee for the Status of Women and Girls. So that's pretty much everything that I had to present. And I'd like to say thank you again for listening to me talk for the last 15 minutes or however long it's been. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't bore you too much and was able to get to the point and hit the important stuff. And of course, if you have any questions at this point, I would be more than happy to answer them, and can work with Brad in the future if any come up after this.
I think probably you might get more traction on the Jennings side than the Croce. But now the Jennings, we have the living room that is historically noted. Is there anything with any code that any historical is limited to more than one designation? Yes. Or would that be considered multiple because it's in that family?
Let me see. So to answer the question, can you have multiple, is no. But is what I'm asking a problem? No, because it's not multiple family, it's multiple per person. So this home, as I've written in my report, would be the Eliza Jennings.
Right, Smith, not the Frank. Yeah, right. Okay.
Eliza Jennings Smith and Ingrid Croce home.
Okay.
And Eliza's home like her whole life in San Diego. So there's no other competing entity like that.
Okay.
Well, she's an historic person in her own right.
I have the, I can share this screen where it's on page 43 of Brad's attachment in the email that shows the 6 historic homes that have had modifications that he was talking about, if anyone would like to.
Perfect. That's really good, Corla.
Would you guys like to see that?
Yeah, pull it up because I've got it on my screen also. I was looking at it while Kyle was talking.
Okay, this is the best I can do. I've never done screen share before, but this
looks great.
These are the 6 that he was talking about, and it looks like they're marked with these red arrows as to what the difference is. So these would be the exceptions, I think, that he was talking about.
Well, the comment I'd like to make when looking at these pictures, what's happened at Kyle's house is that they pulled the roof line back to allow this area off the master bedroom to be used as a exterior porch over the entry, where these properties, they actually added structure. So to me, they seem to have impacted the facade to a greater degree than what Kyle is showing in his first couple photos. Just an observation.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think, I don't know how well you can, I know it looks a little small on the screen, but
You could, she could
there's-
expand that.
there's three of these six are like, they're massive changes to the face of these buildings. Like the one, look at the one on the bottom left. You don't even need to zoom in any further on that. That whole
Right.
top part is an addition.
Exactly.
And then the one right above it, that whole entire room sticks out as an addition. And then the one on the top right, the same thing. That whole entire corner of the house is an addition. So I think, you know, to that whole note, the change that Ingrid made, not only does it really fit, it really doesn't change the character of the home. And to boot, it was done by Ingrid, who's a historically significant person in her own right. And I have all the documentation for that. So yeah, so what I intend to do basically is to take the letters of support that I have and to include that into my write-up, into all the stuff that you're scrolling through right now, and just include that into basically my presentation to the city. So that would be the kind of like end state, to let them know that we have X, Y, and Z community members interest and support up front, rather than dealing with it later and like going through an appeal process and all that kind of stuff.
I wanted
Do you
to
know
get,
who the architect was?
I don't. I wish I did. I would love to
Okay.
know. I can't find it.
where's-
Right, because that's another way around into things too with noted
Yeah.
architects.
I have not been able to find that. And if you have any ideas on how to do that, I don't know, but I have talked to like multiple people like who do these as a profession, who do these projects, and I haven't landed on anything yet.
Kyle, you know that there's reference to, and I mentioned to you in our conversations that I have one of my high school friends that actually lived on the base on the series of older homes that are way down there, that this was sort of based on potentially, and at least in that which you're explaining. I'm just wondering if the architect that did those had any association with this house as possibly, or if they're, maybe that would be, have you checked into who did those properties down there? Do they maybe have that
No,
info?
that's a great, I haven't thought of that.
There is
So
resemblance.
I bet you I could figure out who that architect was. I don't know if I could tie them to this place, but
Right.
because I would still need records. I would still need records to do that, but it would be worth figuring out who that is and seeing if I could, knowing the name, I maybe make the connection somehow.
Maybe they've got a history of what they've done on another end, right? Beside those properties.
I will also say, for one thing that I've learned through this process is, even if you do have like the architect, and they are a master architect or something, someone who's recognized by the city as a master architect, it still doesn't make this thing a slam dunk. And because it was altered, you run into the same exact quandary that we're in right now, basically, because then the argument would be on the con side would be, okay, you had a master architect, but somebody changed it.
Right. If I may interject here for just a sec, project review members, Joe, I know you're driving, so you're just listening, but
No, I'm here.
yeah, great. Both you and Mark, I mean, you're architects. you know, I just felt as though our board, though you guys are architects, you know, we're lay people, and it's not necessarily our position to be able to overrule a determination by the Historical Resources Board or whoever in terms of determining the architectural significance is it, or that the modification was so gross that it's taken this property out of the ability to be approved, which is a little bit of a problem. And even at the bottom of Soho's letter, it kind of, I wish they'd been more definitive, and it said, say it should be reviewed by them. But Kyle has been run into where he doesn't have anything in writing, but he's basically had them verbally tell him that he's not going to get a approval on the architectural part of this. So I guess, you know, what position do we take? A strong position as our own entity, or do we take a position in support of all these other groups that are both Soho supporting it as its historic part? I wish that Soho had made more of a comment about that the architectural changes were not significant enough to override their interpretation of what is historical. I wish that had been a little bit stronger here. But anyway, I'm just wondering what go ahead, Kyle.
That may be something that I could review with them too. If you know, and that might, you know, some discussion between the organizations, or, you know, me passing on one thing, if you feel it's appropriate. I'm not an architect, so right. I wouldn't even feel comfortable, you know, challenging that. But if we have people that are specialists that would feel comfortable to support that, that'd be great. And I could definitely ask Amy and Kylie and everyone else's stand. I mean, just to change the way the last sentence reads, or to make a statement in support, it's definitely worth an ask if you think it'd be significant.
Well, just the reason I say that is because Soho's the ones that provided you with these exceptions, and to, you know, for them to have provided these exceptions to do, and they have received that designation, seems to me that Soho could take this letter a step farther and say, you know, based on you know, prior approvals, we certainly feel as though this is warrants approval architecturally, in addition to the history that it has. So I don't know if Joe wants to weigh in, or Mark, if you have an opinion. Please, Joe, go ahead, pal.
I do. So I've personally been involved with 2 historical designation cases where the alterations were substantially greater than the alterations that have been made to this house. And from what I've learned about it just in the last day or two, this house deserves a historical designation as much as any of the projects I've ever been involved with through the Historical Review Board. And I know that they are absolutely swayable, because I argued for a project to be not designated as historical and won, and then later the owner changed his mind and I argued for the project to be historically designated and he won. So I don't personally understand why the city's even taking that position. This is exactly the type of project, in my opinion, that does warrant historical designation. It meets several, to my mind, of the criteria. I haven't read them in a while, but it meets several, in my mind, of the criteria that do warrant historical designation. Occupants, style, age, all of those things. You know, I've had to argue why tract houses in Claremont weren't historically designated, so I could surely, on a professional level, on a personal level, or perhaps with the approval of the board, make an argument for it to be designated as historical, as a representative of the PCPB.
So I'm just wondering then, do we, instead of doing a letter of support, Joe, or you or do the rest of the members, do we go to the board and say, do we as an entity support this historic designation, or do we just support letters of support.
Well, I think it'd be stronger if it came from the board as a whole, and I would be glad to make a presentation to the board to explain that or to request that. But just in my mind, this is kind of a no-brainer.
So would you be prepared, Joe? You're probably going to be the new chair of this committee in a month. And since you've had all this expertise, it seems as though the person that would be to take the lead on this certainly would be you. And you're prepared to step up and write a short letter in support and take this as a little stronger position than what I was initially thinking.
I think it warrants it. Again,
Sure.
I haven't been involved with this for more than a couple of days, but hearing the history of the house just now and seeing the pictures, I looked at it and went, wow, this should be historically designated. Just like it's a no-brainer. The modifications that have been made in no means, to my mind, would invalidate that designation, that significance. You know, like the house next door to me, I argued for historical designation, and they added 3,000 feet to it. That kind of altered it, and they got a designated plaque.
Oh, the Devonshire property there on the corner?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. They did that massive, remodel on the property, and it was designated as historical.
Wow.
Your thoughts, Mark?
Kyle, have you obtained any consulting like Scott Boonjim or any of those guys that focus in these areas at this point, or not?
As far as architects, or I've talked to a couple. I've consulted with 3 different people that do the overall projects, but are not necessarily architects.
Right. I know there's Moongem, and there's maybe another one out there. And then who was the guy that was on our board? That was
Bruce Coons.
He wrote this letter.
Did he weigh in on this?
Oh, this is the letter, Robert. Did you see the PDF?
I know. I'm sorry. Okay, so that came from Bruce. Okay.
Yeah, Bruce is at the bottom of it.
One of his staff members wrote it, which is why I think I could probably work with them to make it a little stronger, is what like Brad was saying, possibly.
Yeah, that last paragraph was a little stronger. That would help, but I don't even know if they need to do that. If Joe is willing to take this a step further in terms of our board.
Yeah,
that's for historical designation.
Right.
Tooth and nail. What's the deal here? Why is this kind of a milquetoast bottom paragraph?
Don't you think, Joe? That bottom paragraph is just weak. It's like should be reviewed. It should be approved.
Exactly.
Right.
And I've been on both sides of the aisle with Bruce, but on this one, I think he should be in stronger support of a favorable designation.
Right. Okay. Well, if he would modify that now, and I suppose that you'd be willing to write, a paragraph or so, and have the board approve. I mean, I don't know that you're in a position. Kyle, what kind of time frame are you on? Because we've moved kind of glacially here.
That's okay with me. I'm deployed right now away from San Diego, so I'm actually working at a mass vaccination site in Oakland.
Good for you.
So my ability to get stuff done quickly has been significantly thwarted. But I'm very committed to this. And can, burn the midnight oil if I need to make stuff happen on my end. I would say, I don't want to delay. I don't want to intentionally delay, but it's not like a pressing matter that.
Well, likely we could, I don't know how fast we can go through. Maybe Joe could write something quickly, get approved, and the first item would be an action item on approval of support of this. I mean, maybe we could get it in here on the April board meeting, but I'm just saying that it might slip into May. But
I'm still going to be here in May, so.
Well, I'm just letting you know that, sometimes people expect us to do things in, less than a month, and we just can't do it that fast typically.
Yeah.
Well, the letter is easy.
Right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe.
But I'm not authorized before then, or may not even be authorized. I mean, I need to
Right,
have,
right.
you know, the appointment by the board.
Right, that's what I was thinking, that, you know, this might end up going on to the May project review to approve the letter that you write in May, and then take it to the full board for approval in May.
Can we
That
vote
would be,
as a committee to support this and move
To
forward?
Well, we can support it now, but for Joe to get on the committee as chair and then to write a letter as chair.
He needs to be seated first, yes.
Right, so seat him first, and then, so does that sound doable to everybody, that,
Yep.
you know, maybe we could get this done by the end of May, and get a letter for Kyle?
I think that makes sense, the most sense. I think otherwise it would be jumping the gun. And like I said, I'll be glad to give Bruce a call and chat with him about rewording that, and, you know, see how it next week, and then if it plays out favorably, draft a letter on behalf of the ARC review committee for the board and the board.
Okay, so Mark, what do you think? Do we table the action item till May? And at that point, have a letter? Well, obviously Joe will be there by then. I don't know. What's the next step, you guys?
I'm agreeing with the process. Otherwise, we'd have to actually notify the chair of the board tomorrow that we want a letter that we haven't reviewed or approved or even talked about, and Joe's out of town right now. We have to have that ready to go very quickly. So I say let's just table the action item until next month. I think what we're gathering here, Kyle, is that it seems like you're getting a lot of support from this subcommittee on your historic resource designation. I think we're okay that if it's okay with you, we'll just table this and bring it back up next month.
yes, that would be totally fine. I'll still be here and working at the site in May, and so to get it by then would be great. And then I can put everything, I could, you know, incorporate it into the presentation. And I'm actually going to submit also a request to our city council member to Ms. Campbell. And so I'll get once I get your letter, then I'll just forward the whole package that I sent to you guys, including everyone's letters and requests for support also, is kind of my plan.
Very good. Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks,
Brad.
Kyle.
Thank you.
You know,
I'd be thanking you all. Thank you guys.
That was an excellent presentation, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's really been neat I've never really done anything like this before. And so it's been a new thing, but it's really been neat to uncover the history of it. And then, yeah, it's just been a cool project. And as I've learned, and I grew up in San Diego too, so I have like a little, intrinsic passion about the city, and my home. And I've known this home my whole entire life, because every time I've gone to Point Loma down in this area, it's the prominent place that you notice every time you drive past it.
Yeah.
So
very good.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great.
All right, let's move on. Action item number 2 was removed from the agenda. I should have announced that right off the bat. Hopefully there's nobody here that was here to hear Harris ADU. And so, no? All right, let's go on. Lee, you're up here. We're going to look at one project today, action item number 3. This is the Gallagher ADU CDP, the process 2. This is a coastal development permit for the demolition of the existing garage and the construction of a new 2-story, 1,404 square foot, including garage, 2-story companion unit over the garage. Lee Hope is here as the applicant. Lee, why don't you go ahead, and if you want to use the screen share and throw up your plans, go ahead. Make sure you unmute yourself as well. Unmute. Lee, unmute.
Now, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, everybody. So you don't have the plans.
I do have the plans, Lee, but you could do it as well if you actually scroll your mouse down to the lower part of the Zoom, and it'll pop up and it'll say participants chat, share screen. You see it?
It's bright green at the bottom, Lee.
That was easy.
Yeah. And just click
Okay.
that. It'll give you
Screen 2. Do you see it?
yep, it's coming up right now.
Very
Perfect.
good.
Very good. Hey, Lee,
Yeah.
did your grandfather do that house?
Did what now?
Did your grandfather do the historic house at 9?
No, no. The only thing the only thing I would say about it is that they're so into that anything that's not the original house has to look different so people can differentiate the old from the new. And that's always been kind of the rule of thumb I've always gone by. If it looks too much like the old, they don't want to designate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and every single person in historical seems to have turned over in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So anyway, and plus they probably don't want to designate as many, I think, as they used to. But anyway, be that as it may, it looks like a good candidate for me from my side anyway. So anyway, this is another of the ADUs, one of the few that's probably getting a coastal permit because most people can't stand the fact that they got to pay $20,000 to put a ADU in the coastal zone. I don't know in the future what's going to happen. I think that might be getting adjusted here shortly. But anyway, Mrs. Gallagher decided to go ahead with the process, and we're demolishing. It was probably about a 2.5 car garage back on that lower part of the site, which abuts the alley to the north side. I did a ADU directly across the alley from this project a couple years ago, which also required a coastal development permit. I think the issues in the correction letter or the assessment sheet, there was setback issues, but I forgot to write 20-foot alley. I put 15-foot alley. Now that it's a 20-foot alley, that has been remedied, so it's okay. The existing house is pretty, not the most beautiful residence in the world, with a big giant concrete deck in front of it. We are replacing the parking, which is not really even required anymore for ADUs. Unfortunately, they're making it so you really don't have to have any parking. But so we are replacing the 2-car garage. So let me scroll down. Here's the, can you see that, the demo plan right here, the dashed lines of the actual garage? That is the existing garage that is being removed. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, this is existing to remain concrete deck from the existing house. Okay, here we go with floor plans. So this is the existing situation here that is remaining, coming down to a landing area and then down again to the floor levels. The garage is 6 inches lower than the existing house. What I'm trying to do with this alley, which I think I was successful on the other side, is that, try and make these alleys like a livable type situation where you're pulling up at your car and you have your rose bushes and people are out there, just nice frontage to the alley. So it's a, picket fence, door into the entry area, which is covered from above, into the stair up, and then a bedroom and a bath downstairs in the 2-car garage. Second level, up the stairs, which is all open. I don't know if you guys care about the inside, but anyway, just to afford views from the rooms all when you're walking around to see the peekaboo view of, SeaWorld. And you actually have some view also kind of city or the North City. And it's a bedroom and bath up there, a couple balconies. I think the front's articulated
Do you have
enough.
laundry in there, Lee? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there
No, she decided not to do laundry. Why, I'm not sure, but laundry is not part of the project. Yeah, good question.
But you have parking.
Yes, this is minimum size per city standards for a 2-car garage, which is replacing. Now, if you go back to the site, I'm going to go back up to the site plan. Okay, here is the Saratoga Street frontage on the opposite end of the project, the high side. This is the high side of the street. This is probably, I don't have the note, it's on the elevation, but 20 feet higher. There's an existing curb cut, and they created living space from what used to be their existing garage, but they had the 2-car garage here. So they have parking 15 feet in their 15-foot front yard setback. They are 20 feet from the sidewalk, edge of sidewalk to here. So they do have parking in the front, which they obviously utilize for the main house.
What's the square footage of that main house, Lee?
The main house square footage is, existing residence is 2,065 square feet, 2 level, and the existing removed garage was 506. So it was a kind of a big old, really old garage that I had to get a historical report on. Hopefully they don't designate it. And this, you see the square footages of the first and second level, 1,059 plus the garage, 1,029, excuse me. So I'm adding 1,404 square feet. And total on the property will be $3,400. The max, not 3,469 square feet is the amount of square footage, including garage. And then the floor area ratio is 4,060. So we're still 600 square feet underneath the max FAR for the property. Maybe I'll just show you, the elevations are pretty simple. This is the front facing the garage, facing the alley, balcony, the garage entrance, and then the pedestrian access, and then sideways into the front door, which will face this way. And you can see the grading. That's pretty much your grading situation. A little higher on the backside. They'd be retained just a little bit on the bottom. In sections, you can see here's a good view of the house versus Saratoga Street. Saratoga Street's this way. Big flat concrete deck existing, steps down, and then there's your alley elevation down there. Overall height is small because it's only a 2-story with 8-foot ceiling, so it's way under height limit. And garage level's a little lower than the main level. Just getting it up enough so it doesn't flood, because that is alley. Those alleys can get a lot of water running down them during those big storms. And any questions?
I've got a question, Nate. The roof, the materials that you're proposing for the ADU in the back, do they match somewhat what's going on with the house up front?
It's one of those houses that is stucco and clay tile, but it's that cheap 1970s clay tile. And we are going more of the traditional. It's good. The stucco will be the same type of stucco, same finish, but we are introducing siding, and it's going to be an asphalt shingle, and the house needs to be re-roofed. And maybe she'll hire me to give the upper house a different look because it needs it. And but I'm assuming in the future that concrete tile is going to switch to more of an asphalt, because it really, I guess they're trying to make it span. I'm not sure what they were doing, but it doesn't really need the. We don't need to go the way of the existing house, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Or I don't think we should anyway.
Does the roof, I see it has roof pitches on there that are similar to the pitch, the 4 and 12, and it's got an eave.
It's 4 and 12, but the roof pitches of the main houses are simpler. There's not, it's basically one ridge line going side to side And so it's a very simple roof plan. And I bet I could get you a picture if I was really.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on,
Okay.
on street scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, Mark, I hate to say it, no, it does not match the front house. And normally I would if I thought it was a good idea. But I think what's going to end up happening is the main house is going to end up looking like the ADU in the future. But obviously I can't guarantee that, but.
All right.
I have a question. Lee?
Yeah.
I'm gonna speak for Daryl, our old member here. On your elevations, you show the Hardy Backer on the alley side and on this west side, but you don't have it on the east side. And I mean, I can understand not on the back or the interior one, but the east side, I'm looking at is it because of this hedge and the elevation that it just doesn't make sense to put it there on the east facing side? Because Daryl always liked the idea, at least from of this breaking up of the massing like you have in the back and on the west. And I guess if it had more of an exposure, it seems like it would make more sense for that to continue here on this public side. But in looking at this garage on my map here, it looks as though that's would be pretty obscured, right? So
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I've always considered that kind of a hidden I didn't really pay much attention to the east, frankly, just a little bit. But I mean, if it means anything, the lower level, you see how the siding wraps around the garage and it terminates at the garage. It wraps around and terminates. So you get a little bit, but not much.
Oh, I see. Yes, underneath the balcony.
Right.
Oh, so right there.
That's all I've got. I mean, I could definitely,
I think
pick
that
it up
Mark,
a notch.
I think that Mark and Joe would have more of an opinion about that to me. I was just curious because that was something that these architects always point out, and
I get it.
Just ask the questions.
I get it. And
and
frankly,
cost too, right?
What's that?
Cost? It costs a little bit more to continue that whole side with.
Yeah, a little bit. You know what the issue is that you're within, 5 feet of property line.
Right.
So that means it's got to be a 1 hour wall, which means, that the Hardy Backer doesn't give you a rating. So you got to put the another layer of exterior drywall, or you got to put dense glass or something that has a proper rating. So, right. I mean, that's kind of the reason why, you avoid it where you can, where you see a lot of these houses within 5 feet of property line, they tend to just go straight stucco, because stucco and 5/8 inch drywall on the inside gives you that 1 hour envelope.
Well, and they're not going to really be able to see it. And I'm zooming in, there's a big edge there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to really see the side of that much past where you're talking about anyway. So
and again, I mean, this is the coastal submittal, and I know the elevations will be dressed up, more. And I don't know, it's weird with coastal because you kind of do, what they ask for, and this is what they asked for.
Right.
But I think the massing is adequate, but there's going to definitely has to be some more detail going on, and I plan on doing that. But I don't know if you'll take my word for it.
No,
but I do plan on it.
We've seen your stuff in the past, so we trust you.
Oh, thank you.
Corla, Robert, you guys have any comments? Elizabeth, any
What's the
comments?
intended use for this property? This
Say that
ADU,
again,
I
Corla.
mean?
Excuse
The
me?
intended use, is this gonna be a rental or a family thing? Or
She is a recent divorcee, and she is planning on living in this house and either having her kids in the big house, which seems crazy, and then or probably renting the big house. I would assume that it would be the final plan of hers. So it's, living in the small, renting the big.
sometimes
You
the
might
board has
rethink
to-
that laundry situation then, right?
I think she'd wanna do that if she's.
Yeah.
Is there hookups?
Right, well, there's not enough room down in that garage unless you lose the space.
Well, you can't do it because it's not,
It's too small, right?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
Mm.
sure there's gonna be something, a stackable that can be dealt with in the lower level. I literally told her, are you sure? Are you sure? No. And I don't know. That's what she
yeah,
said.
well, all right,
There's only so much I can do.
right.
So, but you know what? I'll bet in the working drawings we stuff one in
Right.
somewhere.
Robert, anybody else? Any comments?
No, it looks good to me.
Yep, thanks a lot, Lee. Appreciate the presentation.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for letting
Hold
me.
on, Lee, we have to make a motion here to get you an
Oh, yeah.
approval so we can
Oh, yeah.
move ahead, but I'm not done with you yet. So Lee, I think the good things are that the ADU doesn't go right up to the property lines on the east or on the alley side. And we're seeing a lot of them that are just right on the alley or right on the property line. And I'm glad for that. What you didn't hear my first comment about was, and I think you understand it, I think you probably agree to it, and maybe you need to work your owner a little bit more to try to get the ADU to look like the house a little bit closer, right? I mean, you've done it in the massing, you've done it in the roof form, maybe it's the window treatment, maybe it's the windows themselves, maybe it's the paint color,
Right.
But something along those lines, because we don't want these things to look like they don't belong on the same property. Right? You understand that, I know you do. So I would say, I would make a motion that we go ahead and approve the Gallagher ADU CDC for the Saratoga for 4376 Saratoga. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, any more discussion on this project? Joe, you have anything to say on this one?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, very good. Okay, all in favor, and Jill, you can say afterwards if you're in favor of it or not. I guess that was you're in favor of it. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, and Joe, I consider that yes, right?
That is yes.
All right, so we've got 5, 5, 0, 0. All right, very good. Me, I will pass your project on as the only project that project review will forward to the board for next month or for next week. And me not being there on the board anymore, I'm going to ask either Corla, Robert, or Brad, or Joe, perhaps, to host you through that and introduce you at the board. Does anybody want to volunteer?
Well, at that point, Joe will likely be the chair of the committee, right?
Okay, that's fine. That's the way we'll treat it then. Just wanted to make that point. So Joe will introduce you then. I will forward it on though to the chair and get you on it. If that's what you want.
Well, that's a little presumptuous, Brad.
I was wondering, I'll be more than happy to do it for you, Joe.
Yeah, why don't you do the presentation on that one?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it something where I go, are you doing Zoom? Is it a Zoom deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of them, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be the same way as we always do it. The chair will turn it over to project review. Brad will introduce the project to the board. He'll ask you to give a brief presentation. Lee, the presentation you just gave with the share screen is perfect.
Okay, so I should be present.
Yep, just run
Okay.
through it. You gonna be available next Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll do that then. Okay, so we approve.
Get the agenda when it comes out, Lee, because we have some business to do at first, because we didn't have elections last year. So we have certify the election. We have some officers to elect. There's some business.
Okay.
So you can kind of see a timeline, so you don't have to spend the whole meeting unless you want to. So
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate it.
good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right. Thank you, Lee.
All right. Take
Keep
care.
up the good work. All right, well, and having said that, that's all we had today for the agenda. I guess was at 4:30, I'll put down, we shut it down. Start a new
Kyle
era.
stayed the whole meeting. That's nice, Kyle. Thanks for staying.
Okay, and Mark, thanks again for everything you've done. You've just really done a terrific job in all the dozens and dozens of meetings I've been in on with you.
Well, thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun in itself.
Well, good to have you back on, Joe. You must have really politicked hard to get all these votes.
He was on multiple slates. That helps.
Yeah, oh God, I mean, yeah, everybody wanted Joe. We needed Joe. Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that.
You're being used.
Yeah, I feel like
Right? I'm like, uh-oh.
You be careful what you wish for, buddy.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened to me. Hey, he's going on vacation.
I know. I just, when you said that, I went, oh, seriously? 7 years?
Well, we know what's happening for the next 3 anyway, right?
I remember that too. I was in the audience in those days. I wasn't sitting on the board, and I'm in the audience,
Right?
and I'm like, all of a sudden, Jay never comes back, and I thought, well, okay, it was certainly really wonderful that you took over, but it was just so funny. It was just odd.
And I was never even appointed by the board to be the chair of the project review. It was just given to me.
Oh, you were never voted on?
Wow. Well, we can get a silver platter,
7 years of illegitimate.
Jay was a man of few words. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm
All right.
running because this is it for me. So appreciate everybody and look forward to seeing you all again and consider you all my friends. How about that?
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Good afternoon. Bye-bye.
All
Thank
right.
you, Mark.
See you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Hey, Brad.
See you later, Joe.
Bye,
Talk to you
Corla.
soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Bye-bye. See you later, Kyle. Thanks for vaccinating everybody.
Yeah. I hope Joe's driving safe.
Driving across Arizona, he's probably doing all right.
Yeah, I had to mute him a couple of times. There was some background, and it kept unmuting and muting and unmuting. So
Yeah, you did a great job with that.
I was trying not to be rude, but I'm like, it was distracting. You couldn't hear anything.
Who was lucky today?
Well, he's probably
I think lucky.
embarrassed.
Yeah,
right?
he registered. The only one that else that
Oh, he
registered.
did.
Daryl registered. And
He
I
did.
kind of expected to see Daryl. I figured he might I thought since he registered, this would be his last meeting, but he obviously wasn't able to show up. So,
Right.
yeah. Well, let me stop recording.
So, well, lucky